When it comes to comic books, much like most of my wardrobe, there's a lot of rip-offs going on. Comic giants are constantly pinching ideas or character traits from one another in an effort to capture the collectors' hearts however they can. None of the companies have a leg to stand on either, as wherever you look, the similarities are blatant, and while plenty of these air quotes copies have largely gone on to define themselves over the years, there's no getting away from such comparisons. So let's take a look at some of them today, which I'm sure will lead people to say that we ripped off this content from someone like Watch Mojo or someone, even though taking their content is like saying, yes please, I'd love a bit of tetanus. With this in mind, I'm Jules of WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 DC characters shamelessly ripped off from Marvel. Number 8. Atomic Skull looks just like Ghost Rider. Flaming Skull? Check. Hilarious name? Also check. Renowned pop culture status? Not really, but Atomic Skull was destined to walk in Ghost Rider's shadow regardless of his flashy look. The two fiery lads are very different personality-wise, but there's a reason why that design looks just a little bit iffy, having arrived some 20 years after the original Rider's debut in 1972. The Skull has made a few appearances in animation over the years and is even featured in comics as recently as 2016's Superwoman series. That aside, he's definitely not the Ghost Rider we all know and love, and could probably do with a little redesigning to avoid more comparisons going forward. Number 7. Bumblebee has the same powers as the Wasp. First things first, Bumblebee is brilliant. Far and away one of the best Teen Titans out there. Karen Breacher Duncan has always been a firm fan favourite and one of the most compelling teenage prodigies of the DC universe at that. That said, there are some blatant comparisons to be made between Bumblebee and, of course, the Wasp, Marvel's very own insect-themed superhero just behind Dr. Bees. Introduced in 1963, Janet Van Dyne's appearance predates that of Karen's by some margin, and given that they share pretty much the same abilities, those rip-off accusations aren't without merit. However, when it comes to which character has been treated better by their creators, it's probably Karen, who hasn't been slapped about or eaten by the Blob, and definitely didn't appear in Doom Patrol, which is legit. Number 6. Guardian is another patriot with a shield. Captain America is far and away the most important and iconic hero of the Second World War. Steve Rogers has become a pivotal figure in the Marvel Universe and an icon of the industry. Things could have been different though. Just a year after Cap made his first attempt at punching Hitler, another dude with a bonk-on for the American way and shields came along. Named The Guardian, it was actually made by the same guys who gave Cap life, so in a weird way, they were ripping off themselves. So what's unique about The Guardian? Well, he rode around in something called the Whiz Wagon and commanded the respect of the Newsboy Legion. So that's something. Guardian has gone on to appear in a host of TV shows, comics, and more, with different characters under the mantle. He might pale in comparison to the Star-Spangled Man with a Plan, but he's more than alright at bashing in skulls. Number 5. Killer Croc is just like the Lizard. While Killer Croc has cemented his place in Batman's Rogues Gallery with a series of stellar appearances, let's all not forget, I threw a rock at him, the Dark Knight's scaly adversary isn't entirely original, or perhaps as compelling as another reptilian villain from the medium. Dr. Curt Connors, aka The Lizard, made his comics debut in 1963, and proceeded to become one of the character's most iconic and tragic adversaries in doing so. Croc, on the other hand, slithered onto the scene in 1983 and was a bit more of a brute at first, though he has shed a few tears as his time went on, giving him a bit of depth. Yet the Lizard, prior to and immediately after his transformation, plays a pivotal role in the development of Peter Parker's transformation into Spider-Man. Croc, on the other hand, often acts as a menace and little else when pitted against Batman, lacking the depth to compete with the Caped Crusader's most revered adversaries, critically speaking at least. There's a great deal to separate the pair, but if we were to play favourites with our reptiles, then the Lizard would probably win each time. Number 4. Rocket Red was DC's answer to Iron Man. Although comparisons between Rocket Red and Iron Man aren't all that prevalent owing to the fact, the rockets actually derived from the USSR, there's a lot visually and politically to connect the pair. Introduced in 1987 by Steve Englehart and Joe Staten, the Rockets formed a part of the Rocket Red Brigade, a Russian defense force outfitted with a state-of-the-art battlesuit not that dissimilar to Iron Man's own. They featured intermittently over the years, appearing primarily in Justice League, but they didn't catch on as much as DC would have perhaps hoped. Undoubtedly, the most interesting thing about the group, however, is their political dynamic. Formerly a part of the USSR, the Brigade fracture and diverge on different paths. Given the original Iron Man was created within that Cold War context, the focus on the group's political debate is very interesting, and no doubt a tact allusion to that very dynamic. Rocket Red will never manage to compete with Iron Man in terms of popularity, but as far as armored heroes go, he's certainly not the worst. I'm looking at you, Shaq. Number 3. Aquaman arrived after Namor, but is still more popular. Although people might like to think that Aquaman was the first aquatic hero out there, he's not actually that original, really. In fact, it was actually Marvel's Speedo-wearing Atlantean Namor who first kicked off the water-based superheroics in 1939. A wartime compatriot of Captain America and the original Human Torch, Namor first appeared in the pages of motion picture funnies. He's a pivotal character in the Marvel Universe, but he's vastly outdone in popularity when it comes to Aquaman, who squirted into our eyes in 1941. Often the butt of many jokes thanks to his ability to talk to fish, Aquaman rose out of a cult status to mainstream love thanks to a renewed attention from the writers. Namor, on the other hand, is yet to get any sort of freshwater treatment. Tough luck, Submariner. Number 2. IMPERIEX is basically Galactus. Anyone who's anyone knows that Galactus is the cosmic bad guy. Created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby early on in their tenure of the Fantastic Four, the big bad purple giant has terrorized the galaxy for as long as Marvel has had its cosmic elements. DC, not exactly lacking in that area, must have been a little jealous though, as IMPERIEX, introduced in 2000, is pretty much their own version of the character. The concept of lifting a cosmic template from one character to another isn't exactly alien to the industry. I mean, Marvel blatantly ripped off Darkseid during their creation of Thanos. It's just that, as far as rip-offs do go, IMPERIEX just isn't all that interesting. A hangover of the medium's most notorious decade, and as such, he's a very forgettable character. And number 1, Red Hood is an answer to Bucky. While there's no denying the merits of the 2011 animated Under the Red Hood feature film, the original text chronicling Todd's return to the land of the living wasn't nearly as good. The fact it arrived at the very same year that Bucky Barnes, Captain America's wartime sidekick, returned from the grave probably didn't make things any easier. And while there was plenty to separate the stories at the time, with Todd lacking the amnesia that typified the Winter Soldier's early days, the success of Bucky's stories provoked DC to persist with Todd for the future, turning him into an anti-hero along the same lines of Bucky and positioning him right alongside the Bat family in the wake of New 52. There's plenty to separate the two characters, particularly in relation to their respective careers as sidekicks, but one can't help but get the feeling that their concurrent resurgence felt a little more than coincidental. And that's our list. Do you have any other DC characters that were ripped off from Marvel? Well, let us know about them in the comments section below. Then why not swing by whatculture.com for more news and articles like this every goddamn day. As always, I've been Jules, you've been awesome, and I'll speak to you soon.